I suppose if anybody wants to call themselves a composer, there are a few things that they have to write, a mass setting or something like that, amongst others, and a requiem. I wrote a requiem considerably more recently than the original inspiration. Back in around about 1982, I saw a programme on the television about the composer Andrew Wharton Stewart. At the time of the recording, he'd had a diagnosis of an age-related illness, which, of course, back in the early 80s was an absolute death sentence. And it was, I believe, his vicar who prompted him and persuaded him to write the requiem that he'd always wanted to do. He dedicated it to his grandparents, but, of course, it became his requiem. And I took two things away from that programme. One was that the music that we heard, and it wasn't the complete requiem, but what we heard was very accessible at first hearing. I've since heard the whole requiem, and yes, there were one or two spiky moments, but overall, it's one of those, if you can say this about a requiem, it was pleasant to listen to. The other thing I took away was, slightly strangely, that if I was ever in that situation, I'd want to write a requiem myself. Well, don't panic. No. I'll be fine till the end of this afternoon. About 12 years or so ago, I had a couple of symptoms which I got checked out. It was absolutely nothing. Sounded as though it could have been worse, but it was absolutely no problem. And at the time, I was wanting to write a setting of the reproaches, normally used in the Catholic Church on Good Friday afternoon. And I'd specifically worked out the format that I wanted for this, and it was that they were sung over the Kyrie eleison, Christe eleison, Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy. I have this thing with some of the really long requiems and masses that you get 40 pages of Kyrie eleison, Lord, I'm sorry. I was sorry 10 minutes ago, and I'm still going to be sorry in 5 minutes. And there's no indication for what it is that we are seeking mercy. But by singing the reproaches over the top, it actually puts that into context. Well, I wrote this, and I took it to the choir one practice. At the end of the evening, one of the basses said to me, "Oh, is this the start of the Attride Requiem then?" And I said, "No." Went away, came back the following Friday and said, "But this is." And I'd written the first movement to it. The next 5, because there are only 7 movements within it, came over about the next couple of months. And we performed it first in 2014, along with some other music on it was the Saturday before Easter, or Saturday before Easter week, for Holy Week. I know some people object to having requiems at Easter time, because they say it's about life, not death, but it's too late to complain now, we did it. And it was for 3 things, really. It was an evening of catharsis for anybody that was still mourning. It was just a time that choirs could get together. We invited people from all sorts of choirs and ended up with about 50 singers there. It was a preparation for Easter itself as well, obviously. But we also did it as a fundraiser for the local hospice. Because of the sort of event it was, we didn't charge a ticket, but I said at the start, if people feel that they would have paid good money to listen to that in a secular concert venue, hopefully they'd be at least as generous. And we raised, just on donations, the equivalent of about 1,700 Australian dollars, which I thought was quite amazing. So the hospice obviously gained a lot from that. At the time, or thereabouts, we had a choir that was able to do a fairly regular choral evensong. We used to do one once a month. And over 3 months, I wrote a blessing, or set to music, a blessing that I'd found for these 3 consecutive services. And although I don't think we're going to be able to hear it. No, okay. It was actually one of these pieces that got accepted for a commercial CD. A very simple little blessing, Prayer of St. Columba, or Prière de Saint Columba. And I sent it up. There was something, again, I think probably in the Royal School of Church Music magazine, where someone was looking for pieces that he knew were out there, written by organists, choir leaders, etc., that only ever get sung in one place because nobody else knows about them, but that he felt that they should be wider known. So I sent this and a couple of other pieces up, and he came back and immediately said, yes, I want to include this. A few weeks later, I got a letter from him saying, which was sent to all the composers who'd sent music up, that because they got so many pieces, they were just over the limit on the CD, and they couldn't guarantee that every piece that was recorded would go on there. So, of course, my heart sank. So I phoned him up and said, well, if it's going to be recorded and not on the CD, is there any chance of a copy of the recording? And I'm so pleased that he immediately turned around and said, oh, no, that is definitely going to be the last piece on the CD. I don't think he said it will completely finish it off. I don't think those are his words anyway. Right, so we're going to hear 3 more pieces sung. Welcome back to the men's choir, The King of the World. Now, this was written long before and nothing to do with the Titanic film. It's not that scene, I'm the King of the World. This was actually written on Faversham Station as I was on the way home from work one day, waiting endlessly for my connecting train, and the whole of the first verse and the accompaniment just sort of came to me. And I thought, great, I'll do a Christmas carol. And then I suddenly realised that I'd already talked about the star and the angels and the shepherds and the birth and the wise men, and there wasn't really anything else that I could say in a Christmas carol. But I gave it to one of our clergy who does a lot of writing, and he actually transformed it into, in effect, another version of, was it Lord of the Dance, going throughout Christ's life. So that's first, and then the oak and the ash. Welcome me back, Lorraine, for that. And finally, from the Requiem, but adjusted so that it's just for solo, the Pie Jesu.